Today's clip is taken from another street interview by DJ Nyame on his channel SVTV Africa. There's a link to the full interview as well as his channel in the description box further below. Please go and watch him. Let's go and watch the clip and then we'll come back and learn from the dialogue.
One kasa na juma be na opese ho ye ana juma be na usua e won sa na juma bi.
Sa na juma de me wo bi ba man hye den wie.
Ene ye den.
Ketri school. Ba man hye den wie ano.
Den na ba na wan hye den wie ko fa nyinsan na.
And the nyinsan de me ko fa bi.
Husband na nyinsan ana say satan na husband ware wo ye.
There be na sometime no husband ware me. Ma so na de na me pre me ho. Because school no me kono me tie wunti na de e si mani so sem pese me ye no ketri ba manfa no so si mani so sem me kona me wie no menya me nsan no adwuma me konye me kwan so me wo yi
wie ya na ware ye
me pacho de bi ni pa foforo na me no wo yi
oh sa we dia internet say die onyinsan wo no wan ware
there be one worry me.
Oh, no, you can't say. It's all no way.
Me nim ne run about so tias say we Nyankopon ko wan ni because on sha kola no o friend phone na edum ntin me nko na me hye no.
So DJ Nyame opens the interview with 3 questions. The first one is
One kasa na juma be na opese ho ye.
One kasa ejuma ben na opese ho ye. If you follow a subject pronoun with ara or ankasa, you do so to intensify the pronoun. So I can say, for example, mena me kachire papa no. Mena me kachire papa no. It was I who told the man, right? But then if I introduce ara or ankasa after the subject pronoun me, I get miana me kachire papa no or miankasa na me kachire papa no. And that means it was I myself who told the man. So I'm using the ara or ankasa to intensify the pronoun. We have a lesson on this. It's up here. But then between the ara and the ankasa, ankasa tends to be much stronger. So here he's asking, wankasa ejuma bena opesa oye. Ejuma is work. Okay, the noun work. The verb to work is ye ejuma. Okay, ye ejuma. So I can say me mami ye ejuma. All right, me mami ye ejuma. My mother works. But here he's asking ejuma bena opesa oye. The ben that comes after this ejuma is the question word which or what. Okay, so if you ask ejuma ben, you are asking which work or what work. DJ Nyame is asking, wankasa ejuma bena opese woye. The pe here is to want, all right? To want. And then we have ye at the end, which is to do, all right? So overall, we have wankasa ejuma bena opese woye. You yourself, what work would you like to do? And then he connects that to the second question. He says,
Ana ejuma bena usua.
Ana ejuma bena usua. We have ana, which is the conjunction or. Okay, so he's using this conjunction to connect this question to the previous, right? So ana ejuma bena usua. By the way, we have a lesson on ana up here. So we have ejuma ben, what work or which work na usua. The verb here is sua, which is to learn or to study. Okay, so you can say mi sua twi, for example. Okay, mi sua twi.
Won sa no juma bi.
Wo insan wejuma bi. The wo here is to have. Again, there's a lesson on this. It's up here. So wo, you have, right? You have, or do you have insan wejuma bi? We have insan, which is the hand. Okay, insan is the hand. Again, this is included in the body parts lesson. It's up here. So insan is the hand, and then we have ano, and ano is the tip. Okay, the tip or the edge of something. Ano is also the mouth, right? But we use that to mean the tip or the edge of something. So mehinano is here, right? Mehinano, the tip of my nose. Mehinano. Okay. And then we have nsano, so the tip or the edge of my hand, right? And then we have ejuma, which we said is work, the noun work. So nsano ejuma literally means, a work that one has at the tip of his or her hands. Handiwork, vocation, okay, so something that you've learned to do with your hand. Nsano ejuma. So DJ Nyame is asking, what will nsano ejuma be? Do you have a vocation, something that you've learned to do?
Nsano ejuma die me will be.
Nsano ejuma die. You said this die, if it comes after something, it means as for or just for. Okay? So nsano ejuma die, for a vocation, me will be. The war we said is to have, and be here is some. Okay, so it will be I have some or I have one.
But man shouldn't wie.
But man shada enwie. Let's start with but. But in Twi is nanso. Okay, nanso. So nanso man shada enwie. The phrasal verb sheda means to be intentional about something. Okay, so when you do something intentionally, we say washeda. Okay, washeda aye, right? So let's say, I step on your toes, right? And I say, oh, man sheda. I'm saying, oh, I didn't do so intentionally, right? But if you have a reason to think, no, I did that intentionally, then you can say, there be oh boy, washeda. Washeda. Okay, you did so intentionally. So this is the regular meaning of this phrasal verb, as well as its negative form. But then we are also able to use the negative form of this phrasal verb to convey a not really meaning. Let me explain. So let's say I ask if you completed school, right? So I ask, uye suku? Uye suku? Did you complete school? Because we have uye, which is to finish or to complete, all right? Now, you can answer this with ane. Mi school, right? Ani mi school. Yes, I completed school. Or Debbie me school, right? Debbie me school. No, I did not complete school, right? But then you can also answer this with man said that enye or man said that enye school. Man said that enye school. So you're using the negative form of this phrasal verb to convey a not really meaning of the completion, right? So man said that in school, it means I didn't really complete. So it's like maybe you got to the final exam period, but maybe you wrote half the papers and left half. So you can't really say you completed, right? Or maybe you did complete, but you didn't go for your certificate. So yes, you did complete, but you didn't really complete. So you say, oh, mansheda envy, right? Mansheda envy. That is what the lady is using here. She says, "Nsano ejuma die me will be for a handiwork. I do have one, but I didn't really complete, learning it."
K3 school.
Eno ye dien. Eno is that. Ye is the descriptive to be verb. We have that up here, and then we have dien as what. So eno ye dien, that is what, literally. And the lady says, a catering school. Okay, a catering school. So for catering school, we can say Edianenoa Suku. Okay, Edianenoa Suku.
Ediane one sheda enwie ko fa nyinsa na.
Ediane baaye na one sheda enwie. When you ask Ediane baaye, literally you are asking, what is it that came? Okay, what is it that came? But we use this to ask, how come? All right, how come? Ediane baaye one sheda enwie that you didn't really complete. So how come you didn't really complete?
Ukofa nyinsa na.
Ukofa nyinseng ana. We have nyinseng, which is pregnancy, the noun pregnancy. But then we are also able to use this same form. So this very form with a lower tone as a verb to mean to get pregnant. All right. So while we have nyinseng as the noun pregnancy, we have nyinseng as to get pregnant. All right. So nyinseng pregnancy versus nyinsei. Nyinsei, to get pregnant. So I can say, for example, kwabena nyinsei abena. Kwabena nyinsei abena. And since I'm using this as a verb, I have conjugated it into the past form by doubling the final letter. Again, we are also able to pair fa, which means to take or to pick, with the noun nyinsei, pregnancy, to say fa nyinsei, as to take pregnancy, to mean to get pregnant. And that is what DJ Nyame is using here. He asks, "Wokofa nyinsei ana?" Literally, this means, did you go and take or pick pregnancy, right? But it just means, did you, go and get pregnant along the line. Now, aside these, we also have nyem, which means to be pregnant, right? To be pregnant. So I can say, for example, meyere nyem, my wife is pregnant, all right? But then we're also able to use this same nyem to mean to get pregnant, okay? So when I said kwabena nyinsei abena, I could switch that for kwabena nyem abena. Kwabena nyem abena, and it will still mean the same thing.
And the nyinsei de mikofebi.
Enye, nyinsei de mikofebi. So we have enye, which is then, all right? Enye meko, then I'll go, okay? Enye uba fremi, then when you come, call me, okay? So we have enye as then, and we said nyinsei is pregnancy. So enye nyinsei de, then for pregnancy, mikofebi. I did go and pick one. We said this B at the end is some or one. So enye nyinsei de, mikofebi. So she's affirming DJ Nyame's suspicion that, did you go and pick pregnancy along the way? And she's saying, well, for pregnancy, I did pick one along the way.
Husband and nyinsei anase satana husband ware.
Husband na onyinsei wo anase sa time no na husband nware wo ye. We need to talk about this ye at the end, but let's take it from the start. So we have husband, which is like husband, right? So in Twi, husband is kunu. Kunu, or the full word is okunu. Okunu. So if I say ukunu ofi, right? Ukunu ofi is your husband home. And then we have yere. Yere, the full word is oyere, as wife. Okay? So we have ukunu na onyinsei wo. Anase sa time no. Time is bre. Okay? Bre. So sa bre no. Alright? Sa bre no. So let's put this together. We have ukunu na onyinsei wo anase sa bre no na ukunu nware wo ye. He's using nyinsei as a verb, right? So he says ukunu na onyinsei wo. So because he's using this as a verb, he has conjugated it into the past. So he has doubled the final letter. Ukunu na onyinsei wo. If you don't know how to form the past tense of Twi verbs, we have a whole playlist on this up here. So ukunu na onyinsei wo anase. Anase is the same as ana or. So the conjunction or. Sa bre no, at that time, right? Sa bre no na ukunu nware wo ye. Again, we'll come to this ye shortly. So we have na ukunu nware wo. So he's using this na to situate what comes next in the past. We have a lesson on this, how to situate the negative in the past, right? So it says na ukunu nware wo. Ware means to marry, right? So the verb ware, to marry. So I can say waware. Okay, waware, are you married? And then you say ane maware. Yes, I'm married. Okay? Answer that in the comment section. Are you married? Waware. If you are not married, you would say menware. Okay? Menware. If you are married, maware. So it is from this verb worry that we get the noun awareɛ, okay, awareɛ, which is marriage. But then this is in the negative, so we have in front. Nware, and it's in the past, so the final letter has been doubled. We have lessons on all these up here: negation, past tense formation, everything. It's up here. When the top gets full, I'll put them in a description box. So overall, we have ukunu na onyinsen wo anase sa abre no na ukunu nware wo. Was it your husband that got you pregnant, or at the time your husband hadn't gotten married to you? Now let's come to the year that DJ Nyame adds at the end of this question. So when I moved to Accra, I noticed the Twi that is spoken here in Accra is quite different from what is spoken back in Kumasi. Well, not entirely, but in some aspects, the Twi is different. And usually when someone begins to speak, I'm able to tell whether the person grew up here in Accra or in Kumasi within a very short time. And there are some cues that give that away. And one of those cues is this year that people in Accra tend to attach to every or most past tense constructions. Let me explain. So if you took our series on the tenses, then you know to form the past tense of a Twi verb, you first check if the verb is followed by an object or an adverbial. If the verb is followed by an object or an adverbial, then you form its past tense simply by doubling the final letter. So let's use an example to clarify this. So in a simple present, we can have Kofi ware ama. Okay, Kofi ware ama. Kofi marries ama, right? Now, to form the past tense of this ware, to marry, in the middle, you first look if there's an object at the end, which there is. There is ama. Ama here is the object, right? So to form the past tense, you just double the final letter of the verb. So you get Kofi ware ama. Kofi ware ama. Kofi married ama. Now, if there's no object, let's say we delete ama. If there's no object, if we want to take this to the past, we'll just say Kofi ware. Kofi ware. Okay, Kofi married. Now, it is this ear at the end that sounds like yeah, right? Yeah, yeah. That speakers of Twi in Accra tend to add to a lot of past tense constructions, including ones that do have objects, right? So I said if there's an object, you double the final letter. That's it. You have the past. You don't add any ear at the end after this. If there's no object, then you add ear as in a or e to the end, and you don't double any final letter. So it's either this or that. But in Accra, I noticed even when there's an object and even when speakers double the final letter, they still go ahead to add this a or e which in sound sounds like yeah, right? Yeah, to the end of the construction, even though they've already doubled the final letter because there's an object or adverbial. Let's use DJ Nyame's example to explain this. So he says, ukunu na onyinsen wo anase sa bre no na ukunu nware wo. The wo here is the object, and rightfully so, the final letter of the verb has been doubled to form the past tense. Ukunu nware wo. This should have ended here. Now, this is where speakers in Accra tend to attach another ear at the end. And this is coming from if there is no object after, the verb, then you would add ear at the end. So it would have been ukunu unware, right? Ukunu unware. But there is an object, right? And once there's an object, you just double the final letter of the verb and you are done. You don't add any extra year at the end. So this is one of the cues that I've picked here in Accra that gives, that away. So overall we have ukunu na onyinsen wo anase sa bre no na ukunu unware wo. So was it your husband that got you pregnant, or at the time your husband hadn't married you?
Debbie, na saa time no husband worry me.
Debbie, na saa time no husband worry me. Yeah. So the lady also introduces this yeah. Do away with that, okay? Once there's an object, you just double the final letter of the verb and you have the past tense. So no, at that time, my husband had not married me.
One kasa na juma be na opese ho ye, ana juma be na usua e won sa no juma bi.
Sa na juma de me wo bi, ba man hye den wie.
Ani ye den.
Ketri school. Ba man hye den wie no.
Den na ba na wan hye den wie ko fa nyinsan na.
And the nyinsan de me ko fa bi.
Husband na nyinsan na say satan na husband worry wo ye.
Debbie, na saa time no husband worry me.